product, you want to reach the broadest possible audience with the best products that really cater to a specific unmet need or desire. Product is really those questions of who is this for and why would they care?
So empathy is really, really important because the product touches everyone in and outside of the company.
When I went to Japan for the first time, and my goal was to figure out how can we make Google more successful or really successful in Japan? And then I asked why. Why are you using Yahoo over Google? And everyone gave me the same two answers. They said, because number one, Yahoo is a Japanese company. And number two, Google is under construction.
One of the things that made people happier at the end of the day is when they realize they accomplished something. So if you are able somehow to help people accomplish something, and what is accomplishing something? Delivering something meaningful.
If you build great teams, if you support people, they will do the best jobs of their lifetimes. And they will then drive the results that your team can be proud of.
In this episode, we will explore the strategies and challenges of developing tech products for a global market. From internationalization and localization to cultural adaptation and leading global teams, we will uncover the key factors that ensure a product can succeed across diverse regions. To guide us through this topic, I invited two exceptionally experienced leaders with deep expertise in global product strategy. Joca is a renewed product advisor with a history of leading teams and transformative product strategies in both tech startups and large corporations. His key role in Genpass transformation is highlighted in Marty Kagan's latest book, Transformed. He is also the author of 4 books on product leadership and digital transformation. Thomas Ford is the Chief Product Officer at Holly, an innovative music company. Thomas has an impressive background. He led product teams and internationalization strategies at industry giants like Meta, Airbnb, Google, Mozilla, Twitter, and Astra. So you both have extensive experience leading products and strategies across regions and industries. What inspired you to pursue your career in product?
I guess my product management career started even before realizing it was called product management, because I was the founder of my own company, one of the founders. And as a founder, even though I have a technical background and I was responsible for technical things, I was always concerned about the results that we needed to generate every month in order for the company to survive. And I was building solutions to our clients at the same time, guaranteeing that we have the profit, the margins that we needed. And this is the basis of product management. So I guess since I started to have my own company, I was very fortunate to have my own company in the beginning of my career. And this gave me a sense of connecting not only technology with customer problems, but also connecting technology with the results of the company, which is the core of product management.
Very cool. And I have a very similar story. So the first company I joined after graduating from college was SAP. And I worked there as a software engineer because product management was not a role that existed at the time. So I worked as a software engineer and really liked diving into the technical details of the software and really understanding everything that happens under the hood. And then also was really, really driven by figuring out who are those users that we serve and why would they care? So these two leading questions, who is this for and why would they care, just came up every day when I realized, it's probably not a dumb idea if we have a very good idea of who we are serving, because that will quite likely make for better products. So I started doing that, and I started talking to customers and potential customers more and more. And then much later, like several years later, I ran into someone whose official job title was product manager. And I asked, what's that? And then I realized, this is what I've been doing my entire professional life. And what keeps me going and why I'm really passionate about product is really those questions of who is this for and why would they care, that really leans into the superpower that is empathy and really understanding where in the world can I solve a big and complex problem in a way that it has a tangible positive impact on many people's lives. And that's what I just absolutely love doing, and then took to the next level by doing that on an international scale, like across 194 countries.
Joca, I'm going to complement with something that Thomas said. What is your superpower as a product person?
Yeah, he touched right at the core of the product management, which is empathy. Without empathy, is absolutely impossible to be a product manager. And when I talk about empathy, it's not only empathy with your customers, your clients, your users, but also with your team, the team that is building the product together with you. You need to understand each of their roles, responsibilities, the impact of your decisions into their work. So you have engineers, you have product designers, you have data people. You also need to have empathy with the rest of the company, the sales, the marketing, HR, operations, customer support, and also the founders, the owners, the shareholders. So empathy is really, really important because the product touches everyone in and outside of the company. So you need to understand the impact of your decisions, of your work, with all this that very diverse set of stakeholders.
How do you develop empathy?
So I always thought empathy is something you cannot learn. I always thought it's something that you have, like the ability to put yourself into the shoes of others and to understand their unmet needs and desires. I thought there's a certain talent that you need to have and bring, and it starts with this deep interest in understanding who those people are and what moves them and what drives them. And as Joca said, it's almost like we compared notes before this, but we didn't. And I could say like 100%, it's all true. And yet you can absolutely train that by, there are some really good real good empathy exercises, especially coming out of improv theater, where someone does something and you have to kind of figure out what are they trying to express, what feeling are they trying to express. So you can train that, and you can train that every day.
That's interesting. Do you have any books or authors that people can look for to get trained on that, train themselves on that?
What I just recommend is, with everything that you observe, if you're like an experienced product leader, or if you're just starting in this role, think about who uses this and why. And if you see a ticket vending machine at a train station, or you see a light switch, or really anything like complex or mundane, think about who is this for and why would they care? And try to think about all the possibilities, all the possible people who use that, let's say, ticket vending machine. Short people, tall people, slow people, fast people, English native speakers, Brazilian Portuguese native speakers, people who are blind, who are hearing impaired, kids, old people, people in a wheelchair, and so on. So figuring out who are those people and what do they want to do? They want to just go somewhere where it's nice, or they want to just commute to work as quickly as possible, or they already know what ticket they want, but they have absolutely no idea and they're completely confused. You have to cater to all those people, and that kind of supports your empathy in who those different people are. We call them personas, and what their fundamentally different needs and desires are, and how those are different. And if you don't know, ask them. This is an experiment that I recommend, especially to junior PMs, to say, just stand next to a ticket vending machine or really any object and talk to people who scratch their heads and are struggling, and ask them what they're experiencing, and ask them, do some lightweight user research. It's a little awkward, but just a little bit, and just talk to them and ask them, what are you trying to achieve? How do you think you can achieve this? How do you feel about this? That trains your empathy muscle every day.
And if I can add to that, when Thomas was mentioning all this, I was remember a time when I was with the engineering group, and they came to me setting OKRs, and they were setting the very famous SLA OKR. Then we went to make the calculation and realized it would be like a quite a big amount of hours. And then I talked to them. Hey, listen, if you were the customer, would you like to be out of your service by so many hours? And they said, no, we should figure a way to increase this availability, because being out so many hours is not good. So just the mental exercise of, hey, put yourself in the your customers or your users' shoes. Figure out what would happen in that situation. And normally just this mental exercise would be enough for them. Oh, I see, I understand now. Because normally they came from, that's what we can do, that's what we can manage. But sometimes what we can manage is not enough if we put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. So empathy is like this. It's just a simple mental exercise. And we as leaders, as product leaders, have this responsibility to help them, to provoke them, or to motivate people in our teams to put them in the customer's shoes.
Just to add to what Joca just said beautifully, of course, they're like, if I can recommend anything, it's like some classic design books. Like The Inmates Are Running the Asylum from Alan Cooper is definitely a must read, or The Design of Everyday Things from Don Norman. There are also some cool books like Set Phasers on Stun from Stephen Casey. And there's a longer list of my personal reading list, which you can find under bit.ly/founder insights. It's just a quick document that I put together at some point to share some of my insights, I would say, to give some ideas that I collected over the years. And a lot of the books that I really recommend wholeheartedly are books from like design, because if you think about it, design isn't lipstick on a pig. It doesn't make things that are ugly pretty. Design is really the interface between products and humans, and it really defines how we perceive things and how easy or hard it is for us to understand, is this doorknob to push or to pull? And you realize, oh, there's a better way. There's like a much better design and much more thoughtful design. You just put like a metal plate. You don't even have to put letters push or pull on the side. That metal plate, you cannot pull. You have to push. There's just no way to do it wrong. And that principle translates into in so many ways to good product design and product craft, and also empathy, because you get a sense for, oh man, someone approaches the door, they don't know if they should pull or push, and if this door really only goes in one way, why not make it easier and more intuitive?
So I want to ask now, what was your greatest learning experience?
Sure. I have to think about that a little bit, because I always think about learning experiences as something I'm looking into every day. But I can say there were a couple of really interesting things that I experienced and that I learned on the job. So example number one, Google. When I went to Japan for the first time, and my goal was to figure out how can we make Google more successful, or really successful in Japan, which it wasn't at the time at all. So I went there and I did intercept studies on the street, which is also somewhat unusual. Usually people don't talk to random strangers on the street, and I learned enough Japanese to be friendly and still weird and ask people a question. And I asked them if they know Google. And a lot of people knew Google. And I asked them, okay, so do you use Google? And every single person I saw on the street gave me the same answer, no. They said, no, I don't use Google. And I was like, great, tell me why. Why are you not using Google? That was at the time, by the way, when desktop was still a thing. And, the Google homepage at the time was pretty empty. It just had like a few words, legal disclaimers on the bottom, and otherwise it had the Google logo and a search box. So what's wrong with that for a Japanese audience? Everything. But what do they use instead? They said Yahoo. It was okay. Yahoo was big at the time. Cool. And then I asked why. Why are you using Yahoo over Google? And everyone gave me the same two answers. They said, because number one, Yahoo is a Japanese company. And number two, Google is under construction. Now, some older people might recall when like the internet was a little younger and not every web page was as packed as it is today. Some people had pretty empty looking pages with just a little bit of text on it, maybe a logo, and it was like a coming soon kind of placeholder page. So Japanese, if you look at print media, it's packed. It's really like there's no empty space. And so this magazine style or newspaper style is what they prefer, or at least preferred at the time. Design is ever changing, but at the time they preferred that for the web as well. So comparing Yahoo, that is a portal page which has everything, like your horoscope, the news, the sports, games, everything packed on a single page, and you have an endless scroll, which people considered as, oh, cool, there's a lot for me to explore there. And Google was a mostly empty page, so they didn't trust that there was anything interesting behind it. And the other interesting thing, as I said, they thought Yahoo was a Japanese company. So they did something that catered to the Japanese audience in such a way that they felt this is a company for us from here, which is the ultimate level to achieve if you want to drive product localization. They made it. They felt local. And then I found things like, like Google Maps, for example, only support. So Japan has four alphabets: hiragana, katakana, kanji, and romaji. And Google Maps only supported hiragana and katakana, which is typically what kids learn, but it didn't cater to an adult audience that reads kanji as well, and it didn't have subway stops. And so that was easy to fix. So we went back to the drawing board and we said, well, for Japan, we really need to support the full range of languages, first of all, and we need subway stops. And then thinking of how can we add innovation to have a competitive edge? Well, we figured out that taking a cab in Tokyo, for example, is really expensive. And the subway stops running like surprisingly early, which is a big surprise. So you have to catch the last subway. So what did we do? We not only translated Google Maps also in kanji, also hiragana, katakana, but also we added subway stops and we added the information when the last train on all the respective lines run. And that alone was a huge success because suddenly that became a utility that people realized had value for them.
Yeah. And for me, the early beginning, making my own company, and then selling the company to an international company, to an American company, and understanding global products. My first mission there as the product director was creating a global portfolio of products from the products of the individual companies that were acquired. It was like 15 to 20 countries, and each of them had their own products, and I had to make a global portfolio from those local products. Many of them were quite similar, but there were differences. There were local differences. Back then, it was 1997, 98. There was not many literature about that, so I had to learn on the job. It was a very interesting experience. And I was talking to people in a way that was normal to them, for instance, here in Brazil. But then I went to talk the same way to people in, I don't know, the UK or the Netherlands. It was completely different. They say, oh, go straight to the point. You don't need all this information around it. So it was a very interesting learning experience, how to talk to people in different cultures to accomplish the same thing, so to speak. So very, very interesting.
Product management and business culture is completely different from one region to the other. What are the cultural differences and how teams build products in different regions? And how does culture impact product development?
When you talk about globalization of products, there are many variables that you can take into consideration. And the first one, obvious, is about the language. You need to translate, and we may think it's quite simple, just translating and getting the translation right. This is the first thing that we think. It's the easy part of globalizing or internationalizing products. But even the translation is tricky. For instance, in English, you can say something, I don't know, in 5 letters or 6 letters, and the same word, I don't know, in Dutch, it takes like 15 letters, so it breaks all the design and everything. This is not talking about other aspects like payments. Payments are a huge issue in globalizing products. The way people do business, if you do a product, I don't know, in Gympass we were making a product that was a corporate benefit, so companies could offer to their employees to access gyms and studios. corporate benefits works one way in Brazil, and another way in Germany, and another way in Italy, and another way in Spain, and another way in China. So there are differences how the business around the product operates that needs to be taken into consideration in the product design and the product development as well. So a lot of things to think about when you are internationalizing a product.
Absolutely. And just to add what you said, Joca, I was always really fortunate and lucky to work in multinational teams. And that to me is fabulous, because what you get for free is you get this like user empathy on an international scale, almost built into your teams. And yes, as Joca also said earlier, you have to meet that with an open mind, and you have to understand that not a single one on your team is right, and not even yourself. So everybody has good points, and then really figuring out, okay, what kind of product we want to build, and how does that product change across different users, across geographies. And interestingly, I have a good example also from Brazil. And in fact, for countries like Japan, they're all about packaging. You can buy a single strawberry that's nicely wrapped, that costs $50 just because of the nice packaging. And they will absolutely smell if something is translated instead of created and written in the native language. They will sniff that out and they will reject it flat out. And so in Brazil, it was a mystery for us, though. When I worked at Twitter, there were like many nations that were really big on Twitter, and Brazil was one of those nations. But Brazil was the only country in the world that showed a specific behavior that we could not explain. You know, how Twitter works, like you follow accounts, you can follow each other. And in Brazil was really the only country where we saw something really interesting happen. So usually we had people follow about 30 to 50 accounts or so, like stuff that they're interested in. Some people more, some people fewer. But Brazil, we saw accounts following thousands of accounts. And that was like a head scratcher, like why? And then also we saw a very interesting behavior, which is people followed each other and then suddenly dropped all their followers. And then we figured out why by doing user research. So Brazil used Twitter a lot of being famous and being like a celebrity. So they would build up the network by saying, hey, I followed you, follow me back. And then when they have a certain number of followers, say a few thousand, they would unfollow everyone. And that would then look like they are a celebrity, because they would have very few people or no one they follow, but everybody follows them, which is a typical pattern for celebrities on social media. And that was what's going on. Now, I ask you, I was the international product manager. Am I to judge how people use that tool? That's not at all how Twitter was built, and that's not at all what it was for. But is it wrong when people like discover that? The quick answer is no, of course not. They can use it any way they like. And so we cater to that to say, okay, well, Brazil is this anomaly. Great, let them do that. And we'll actually support it. We'll actually make it easy for people to follow each other. And in other countries, not so much. Again, the extreme opposite, Japan, which used Twitter or Komodori as like a Twitter clone, very like carefully and only really following people they know personally, and all having their accounts private so they can private message each other. So like a private network. They would not necessarily follow many other accounts. Maybe they follow like the subway system or the earthquake alert system because they are important and really reliable real-time and live information coming in through, but they would not follow like celebrities necessarily at the time, or other people they don't know. So that same mechanism would not work there at all. For them, it was really important to understand is this account verified? Am I really following the official earthquake alert system, or is this a different account that I should not follow? So two nations could not be any more different, using the same tool, the same platform in dramatically different ways.
Yeah, that's wonderful stories, Joca and Thomas. So how do you balance maintaining a consistent product identity while adapting to local markets?
If you think about internationalization, which is the technical side of things, like how much is your product prepared for time zones, date formats, maybe the direction of writing, if you have Baidai languages like Hebrew, Farsi, Urdu. For example, and like the technical side of things, and localization, which is the language part, which translation is a part of, and then all the other things that we just talked about. And you can literally go from, like, on a spectrum from 0 to like 100%. 0 is, oh, we're not doing anything. They should just, let's say I'm a US American company, and I could say, oh, everybody can just use Twitter in US English wherever they are, and they just use it. They can write tweets in their own language, but all the user interface and nothing is really translated. Or I do the extreme opposite, and I say, no, it's not only do we have to really cater to a specific audience, we have to build a whole new product, and maybe even a different brand. Like at some point, Twitter was not a brand that Japan recognized. They really wanted their own client. Komodori is the name of a small bird, and they really preferred that over the original Twitter client. So for them, it was Komodori. And again, who am I to disagree? So I lean into that and I say, yeah, I need to really build a completely separate brand. Same, by the way, with Airbnb. With Airbnb, we thought of, again, Japan, using Airbnb in a very different way than the rest of the world. So would it be useful to actually lean in and build a whole separate product that really fully leans into what those users expect? And then or something in between. So either nothing, or like build a separate product, maybe even a separate company, or something in between, which is more realistic. And then you have to know the pros and cons. The pros, of course, are you capture more people that way, and you seem, like in that example with Yahoo being perceived as a Japanese company, you seem native, and you have an easier way of user growth in local markets in all geographies. But of course, the disadvantage is it's more effort, and not just more effort to build more stuff, but it's also, if you kind of move away from a common code base, you suddenly have to maintain, you kind of branch out, you have to maintain all those different versions. So unless your product is infinitely modular and you can just plug and play, it's hard to maintain. And every techie will now agree to say, yeah, you have to be really careful. So then to make that decision on that scale from 0 to 100, you kind of do some market research and do some user research to see what's really needed. So for example, Japan expects not translations, even if they are like perfect, they expect transcreation. So that is really, you give a writer some talking points, and you have a native speaking writer write the points, not translate any sentences that you give to them. In other markets, China, not so much. They're used to so much grief in their language that even a poor translation will be accepted in some markets in China, even if it has like grammar mistakes and typos. So then you may not have to optimize for that. The other side is a business reason, like for your company. What is the top level business goal? What are you trying to achieve? Let's say your goal is you want to double your revenue next year. And then you break that down into, okay, well, where should that growth be coming from? And if part of that is global expansion, and you picked your target market and you figure out where you want to win, and let's say you want to roll out to English-speaking countries outside the US, so the UK and Australia and so on, that might be easy. And then you go to Asian countries, because that's always this like holy grail and pot of gold, and many people and a lot of money in there, but also incredibly difficult to do and requires a lot of local knowledge. And then you decide, oh, if your goal is to win China, great. Then figure out how much or how little localization do you actually need to expand your footprint in the country, and what's your strategy. That defines, on that scale from 0 to 100, how much or how little you need to invest depending on the market.
Very good, very almost like a lesson on internationalization. Very good. Really
just painful experience, I would say.
all the best lessons come from painful experience. I totally agree. To add to that, again from experience as well, via networks experience, because of the nature of the product was internet services, so web hosting, connectivity, VPN, and things like that. We were able to offer this locally. Remember, this is back in the 1990s, so a long time ago. The internationalization strategy was acquiring local companies. As simple as that. You are acquiring local market knowledge with a product that is already accepted in the local market. That's very, very simple. I guess it's closer to the 100 side, right? So that's one strategy. The other strategy is as Thomas mentioned, coming from a central product and analyzing country by country how we're gonna internationalize. So that was my experience at Gympass, leading product there. It was very centralized in Brazil. We were doing product from Brazil and had to adopt it to other countries. So the example that I gave, the translation, but also we were having huge issues on billing and collection. It was very, very difficult. So we had to cut local deals with local providers, and then we realized there were global providers that could offer a service on global payment and global collection with local offices. So we didn't have to have the local offices for billing and collection. They were able to do that at a cost, obviously, but it was more scalable for us at the time. And at a certain point in our strategy, it was in 2019, the GDPR was not even a thing here in Brazil, but in Europe was huge already. And then we realized we need to change our product to be able to, because we won't be able to sell anymore if we were not compliant to GDPR. So we changed. Our initial strategy was build from Brazil for Brazil to the rest of the world, and for this specifically part, we had to change to build for Europe, and then from Europe to the rest of the world, because GDPR was a thing there, and later we already knew it will come to Brazil and other countries. Another change in our strategy that we made also was the US. So in order to win the US, we're going to start to build first for the US and then bring to Brazil. Even though the sales team and the operations team in Brazil, they got not very happy with this decision because Brazil was the biggest market at the time, but it was a change in strategy. We needed to be better in the US.
What is the process of developing a product strategy for global audience? How you develop a product strategy that is coherent for everyone?
For me, personally, I think at some point I wrote down 5 steps toward a proper globalization strategy. Step 1, as I said earlier, you prioritize business goals and derive product goals from there. So you figure out what does the company want to do. Typically, it's business growth. And you then figure out, okay, what does this mean for your products and for like your target countries? I'll give you an example. And this might shock you because it's so simple. What we did at Google was, okay, well, we want to multiply our revenue at Google. How do we do that? Well, we'll look at globalization. So in this case, for the language part of things, I figured out, okay, what are all the languages in the world? And we figured out, so if I cover the 40 top most spoken languages, I cover 98% of the planet. If I sort countries by internet population, for example, which is a prerequisite of using Google at the time. And so that created a strategy, or that created a program called the 40 Languages Initiative. So the idea was, ideally, we would serve all products in all those languages for across the entire portfolio of Google, and there are many products in there. So that was like the vision. So prioritizing the business goal and deriving the product goal. Now, the next step in this first step, you're still with step 1, prioritizing business goals. The next step was to draw 2 lines in that list of 40 languages, and then you get 3 tiers. You get top tier languages, which are French, English, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and so on. The most spoken languages, just the top of those 40 top languages, and then the middle part and the lower part, and that gives you some prioritization amongst the 40 languages. So you get a sense for, okay, the tier 1 languages are maybe like 10, 15 or so. They are must-have. Like all products have to absolutely launch in these languages. Otherwise, we will not launch until those languages are ready. And then the middle tier is like, really important, but could come later. And the tier 3 languages were like, yeah, great to have, but also absolutely not necessarily on launch day. And then step 2 was define how much localization we actually need per market. So for each of those, let's say top tier 1 languages out of the 40 languages, which when I say languages, I really mean locale, or it's really mapped to a market. to figure out, okay, what do we need to do there? Like for US English to UK English, there isn't really much to do. It's a separate version of the language, but we don't have to change the entire product around. It's a separate locale. They write words differently here and there, but it's like easy to do. So we don't need much localization in terms of the product itself versus Japan, again, to take that same example, on the other extreme. So we need to do something completely different. So figure out where on the scale you need your localization that goes beyond language. And that could be local content or local optimization for local needs. And when you have that, you choose the right teams and tools. So then you figure out as a company, which tools do you want to use to translate? Do you have in-house tools? Do you build those tools? Do you buy those tools? Do you work with external agencies? Do you hire localization experts, including translators or authors, writers? Or do you work with country teams, or do you outsource all of that? So that's what you have to figure out. And the next step 4, is measuring quality and impact. Like really, a localization of a product is only as good as you can actually measure it, and as you know, if it's actually hitting the goal. Is it really, like if you have a beautifully localized product, translated and localized to local requirements, is it really bringing in more users? Or are your users more sticky? Or do they have a longer, do they convert better? Or what's the advantage? You have to measure that to know also what is your localization quality? Is it actually good enough, or is it laughable? Then it's not useful, even though you spent all that time and money. And then point number 5 is go back to number 1, which is really keep prioritizing business goals and derive product goals from there, and always account for changes that can happen in the world, in your markets, in your products, and never stand still. Always iterate over those first four points, which is prioritize business goals and then derive product goals. Define how much localization you need per market. Choose the right tools and teams for what you need and how do you want to do it, and measure quality and impact.
Amazing. That's a great framework, Thomas. Joca, I have a question specifically for you. Well, maybe Thomas can complement also, but one way of expanding into international markets is through acquisitions. And you led product strategies for local web and via networks, where you were responsible for integrating products in the existing product portfolio. In such a complex scenario, how do you create a coherent product strategy?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because normally when you make an acquisition, you already have a plan. Sometimes it's even motivated by the product diversification that you want to do. So you have an idea of why you're going after this particular company in order to acquire. So as I was mentioning at Via Networks, the internationalization strategy and expansion was basically on product diversification. You need local products like hosting products, internet connection products, VPNs, and so on. And that was the main strategy of the company. At local web, even Conta Azul, the acquisition is more driven by the product portfolio diversification. So at local web, we built a lot of products internally, but we realized we wouldn't be able to build all the products that we wanted to build to our customers. So we started to look into the market and see who were building the products the best and acquire them. So that's the reason behind the acquisition of Tray, for instance, at local web. Local web already had a web store solution for many years. But when we look at that Tray and saw they were like years ahead of us in terms of our vision, where we want to be in terms of product, so we decided to go there and talk to them and see if we can make a partnership or even bring them, and we were able to acquire them. And then we decided to shut down our existing product and turn our clients into the new product that just have been acquired. So that's how we drove our strategy.
Thomas, I will ask you a little bit about AI. In your work, you have turned cutting edge technologies, particularly AI, into successful global products. How do you approach the challenge of integrating complex new technologies into products that resonate and are accessible for a global audience?
So first of all, a product is only as good as it really caters to its audience. Like no matter which technology I use or if it has AI in it or not, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's only as good as I can really measure that it caters to the right audience and that it meets people's desires and unmet needs. So I say that on the outside. It sounds trivial. It's often forgotten. And I say that particularly because everybody who understands AI and who has looked into AI historically also knows what AI winters are. AI winters are usually the periods that follow excitement about AI and that basically create a certain downswing of excitement and investment in AI. And we've seen this several times in the history. AI is as old as computer technology. It's like from the 1940s. It's nothing new. And of course, it constantly develops and it constantly evolves as a technology. And it's amazing. Just like computer technology is amazing now and so much better than it was like 10 years ago and 20 years ago or 5 years ago. But the excitement about AI comes in waves. So right now we are still on a wave, but we already feel that some consumers feel like they're bombarded with AI everything. But what I would predict there just about the AI is maybe not an AI winter, but definitely some sobering of, oh, this is really what it can do and this is what it cannot do. And now, how do you, to your core question, how do you think of building products or building new technology into products? Well, again, you start with what is the problem that you want to solve? What is the best possible solution? And then you figure out what is the best tool for that. If it's AI, there's like AI can do amazing things, and machine learning is technically not even part of AI. You could say it's part of data science because it's really just finding patterns in big masses of data is a discipline of AI. Regardless, but you could say, oh, well, recognizing patterns in a ton of data is something that a machine can do pretty well. And they're also really fast at it. So that is cool, a good tool. If I have any of those components in my product, I should probably learn a thing or two about machine learning and big data and maybe AI, but I can also avoid the word if I think it's a dirty term, to really create something faster and simpler, but not deterministically. It's more of a guide and a support. And that might be just the right tool to use. If I don't have big data, if I don't need that, like what used to be called fuzzy logic or more dynamic reasoning, then maybe AI is not needed, and just traditional coding or just more traditional technologies might just be fine. So my approach there is always start from the user, start from the unmet needs and desires. What are you really trying to achieve? And then every product leader hypothesizes around what is the best method to approach that.
Joca, do you want to complement? I know that you have many stories of creating simple solutions for complex problems.
Yeah. One thing on this AI topic that I made a parallel the other day. The internet is a very old technology, like from the 70s, but it got popularity when www and browsers and internet browsing and Netscape and Mosaic appeared, and everybody understood what internet was all about. And from there came e-commerce and blogging and Web 2.0 and all of the amount of innovation just exploded. My perception in terms of AI is the same as Thomas mentioned. AI has been around since the 50s, the 60s, but with the LLMs, the generative AI that became popular with ChatGPT last year, everyone started to see what is possible to do. A use case that make everybody understand what is AI. The same as the browser Mosaic was able to make for internet. Prior to that, people didn't. Why do I need a network of computers? Why do I need information spread all around the globe? Why? And then came the browser, and then, oh, this is amazing. Imagine what I can do. The same is happening right now. So probably we're going to see many interesting uses of AI that we don't have a clue of what's coming. So we are in a turning point, I believe, with this Gen AI and NLM and all that will come after that will be amazing. We are in very exciting times, in my view.
Joca and Thomas, you are empathetic leaders. You build very successful products. How do you manage to balance results and people?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, to start here, one thing is that they are not opposite. Results and people actually who achieve the results are people. So you need people in order to achieve great results. So this is one thing. The other thing that I learned very early in my career, I don't remember from whom or from where, but one of the things that made people happier at the end of the day is when they realize they accomplished something. So if you are able somehow to help people accomplish something, and what is accomplishing something? Delivering something meaningful. Meaningful by what means? By delivering results to the company, by solving the user problem. So is that simple actually? You just need to motivate people to achieve results, and then the results will come.
Yeah, and I would probably say the same thing in different words, but for me, people first, very clear. I'm a people person, people before outcomes. But as Joca said, it's like one sets you up for success in the other. If you build great teams, if you support people, they will do the best jobs of their lifetimes. And they will then drive the results that your team can be proud of. So for me, I mean, as a people manager, I'm a very thoughtful leader, and I think about that a lot. And I think about how can I provide the best support? So is it with situational leadership, or is it like, how can I support my team and individuals the best? And I realized that I really only have two jobs as a people leader. One is to prepare the environment that allows the person that I'm supporting to do the best job of their lifetime, to remove red tape, to provide what I can do on my end, resources or support, emotional support, practical support, whatever that is, so they can do the best job in their lifetime. And number two is to really help develop their career and to make sure that the spot they're in is not something where they're stagnating, but is exciting every day in a way that they feel they could not find a better place to work and where they can further develop their career over time. And about motivation, Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive, and I really like the framework, which is very simple, that he laid out in the book. He says, well, you can't really motivate someone because motivation is created like intrinsically, but you can create the boundary conditions or the environment for people to feel deeply like motivated or to develop that motivation. And he found in his studies three principles that he found interesting and like really matching that criteria of creating that environment for motivation. That is autonomy, purpose, and mastery. Autonomy, because people want to be left alone and not micromanaged in situations when they know how it's done. Purpose, like every time you have a one-on-one, make sure that you're still aligned on here's what we're trying to achieve as a company, as a team, and how you contribute to that. And mastery, I just touched on, just saying it's one of my jobs to allow the person I'm supporting to grow. I'm a servant leader, so I want to be sure that I do everything I can for them to have a really gratifying and enjoyable experience while they're at work, because then they will also be happier. You know, it's a warm and fuzzy word, but it's also true, and they will be more satisfied with their situation. They will work so much harder, and they will really create better results at the end of the day. So autonomy, purpose, and mastery, or simpler said, like really making sure that there's alignment between the company goal and really a good understanding for everybody at the company how they specifically contribute to achieving that goal and how it matters whether they show up and how they show up. And that is simple. It's a much more pleasant way to support people than being a dictator. And I can see how some people then at some point, because they get so much pressure to deliver, switch to the dark side and then forget all of this good stuff. So far, I did not have to do that ever. And I'm not intending to. So that's the side that I choose.
Beautiful. And how do you foster innovative and collaborative culture in your teams?
With shared goals and ownership, I think the overall goals should be clear. If you work for the same company, it should be clear to everyone what you're trying to achieve as like the broader organization. And then you break it down in OKRs or KPIs or goals or whatever you want to choose, some kind of framework that brings a little bit of structure into how we get there and how do we turn that goal to something that we can actually achieve. And that is more a strategy and a plan and a roadmap if you map it to a timeline than just an idea that is unrealistic unless you put some thinking behind it. And then you have like shared goals and you have individual goals. Individual goals can be career goals or personal or professional development goals. And the team goals are often related but not necessarily the same, which are what do we have to deliver as a team or what does your role have to deliver? And that you define and check in on and make sure that it's aligned with the company goals. So it sounds very process driven, but it's really just making sure that there's a common understanding of what are we trying to achieve and how do we agree on achieving this and how can we measure that we are on the right track and what are we doing if we're not to correct the system, and having this as a very transparent process to say it's like blame free. It's like if it goes off the rail, it's not necessarily your fault. Maybe it's not anyone's fault. Maybe we set the goal too unrealistically, or maybe the market changed, or maybe we did not understand our users correctly. So instead of blaming, let's all come together as a team, build that trust and say, okay, either yay, it's going the right way and we know it's going the right way, or it's not. Let's pause for a second or slow for a moment and let's course correct all together and then figure out where we want to go next. Building that trust and making this a transparent team exercise is the key.
Yeah, completely aligned with that. And the product development team is cross-functional. They have product designers, product managers, engineers. And one very common mistake I see some teams doing is that, okay, we have a cross-functional team and let's set OKRs for them. And here's the engineering OKRs, here's the product design OKRs, and here's the product management OKRs. So you are not building a team. You are building a group of people that pre-COVID they used to sit together, not even that today, but they used to sit together, go out for lunch together. But as soon as they are at their desks, each of one is pursuing their own objectives. And sometimes the objectives are not aligned. So each of them are rowing in different directions and the boat doesn't go anywhere, right? So in order for the boat to go to the same direction, so everybody rows in the same direction, you need to set common OKRs. Even though the OKR is more towards engineering or more towards designing or more towards product management or company objectives, you need to have them having common OKRs. That's one key that I found, a very simple hack, so to speak, in order to help people to collaborate. They need to have the same objectives. Like 70 to 80% of their objectives need to be common. They may have one or two objectives that are more local, more product design oriented, or more product management, or more engineering side. But 70 or 80% of the group objectives need to be group objectives, so they are able to row in the same direction.
To build global products, to have diversity in your teams is very important. How do you build a diverse team?
In order to build great products, you need a diverse team. And you start with diverse functions. You need engineers, you need designers, you need product managers, and they come from different backgrounds. And this is very important in order to build a great product. You need these different perspectives on how to solve a problem, because all of them are there to solve problems, to create products that solve problems to the clients, and you need those different perspectives in order to build great products. So that's the first thing. The nature of product development requires diversity in its core. It's a basic requirement, because if you don't have this, you won't be able to build great products. And aside from that, you need diverse a team in terms of gender, in terms of background, because your audience, the people that you use your product, is diverse. So if they are diverse, you need a diverse group in order to be able to build the best product for them.
I also think it's so cool to make this fun, because diversity can be, like in every part of life, it can be really enriching and really exciting, and it can also be scary sometimes. Let's make this fun. Let's really figure out where is like cultural misunderstandings, why does it happen, and what are things that are so bizarrely different across different countries. And especially if you happen to be working in a team that has a lot of people from different backgrounds, how cool is that to have that exchange and to figure out how weird and odd and fun some of the things are, and to bring that in, to celebrate that, and to use that as a superpower rather than as something that people feel like uneasy about, and to really celebrate that, to say, cool, how would someone in Bangladesh do this? Or how would someone in Brazil do this? And even within Brazil, is there a difference in different areas of Brazil or different regions in Brazil? Because it's a big country. How would people in the north do it differently from the south? In India, that definitely exists. People in Hyderabad are very different from people in Bangalore. They're just all equally nice and human and amazing, and they have very different personalities. And bringing that in, they do business differently, they communicate differently. Bringing that in and seeing that as an advantage. There are a lot of real good team building classes that underline that, and they say you do not want to build a team that has people that are exactly like you and only those people. You need diversity of talent and personality and background in order to build something great. So better embrace it, and why not make it fun? And you can make it fun by something silly like, okay, bring in your favorite food and have people taste it. So that is like a small but a cool way of experiencing a different culture. When I was running my company Savvy, we would have every Friday we would have our retrospective and team meeting, and we would look back at the past week and look forward to the next week. And we would always open that with a different thing. But one thing that we did every week was something that had to do with our very international team. We had a very small team, but we had people from many different countries on this team. I don't think we had 2 people on the team, small team, but we did not have 2 people that came from the same cultural background. And that was really cool, and we were all excited. And so we played a little game. And so every Friday we would open our weekly meeting by things like, okay, this week, everybody say their worst swear word in their original language and tell us what it means in English. And then people would say, the usual ones that I'm not going to use on this because they're really mean. And then Turan, my very much loved and really appreciated head of marketing, said something she's from Tehran in Iran, and she said something in her language which translated into, I put dirt on your head. And we were all like cracking up, like, how is this the worst possible swear word that you could come up with? And she said, well, it's just what it is. Like, there are other swear words, but we just say that if we want to hurt someone real bad. And that was just so fun. And so I will never forget that. And neither will everybody else, to say, oh, it's so weird and also interesting.
Wonderful. How do you see, both of you, the future of product development?
I've been hearing a lot of questioning if product management is still necessary, and we do need product managers, and we will need product managers for a long time, because what I see is product management making the connection between what the product development team and the company, the overall company. It's the bridge between the user needs, as I mentioned prior, and the company results that need to be achieved. And the product management is this role, as I mentioned in the beginning. That's I perceived myself doing product management without realizing it, because it was this connection between the technology and the company results that we needed to generate. And in my company, we were funny new terms like startup and bootstrap. Back then, we just had a small company based on technology that needed to generate profit, because if we didn't have profit, the company will end. That's simple. And this role to connect technology with the company results always existed and always will be needed. We call it today product manager. We may call it different in the future, but it will always be needed. And in terms of product development, we are getting better and better. We are having more technology, and AI is helping a lot, helping us to build faster, to prototype faster, to test faster ideas. And this will be very, very helpful. It's really exciting. So I'm excited with the future of product development, to summarize.
Absolutely. And I can just add, so at its core, the future of product development will still be anchored around who is this for and why would they care? Because why would it be different? You want to reach the broadest possible audience with the best products that really cater to a specific unmet need or desire. That's ultimately what products do. I think methods are going to change quite a bit. We already talked about AI and ML, machine learning, so obviously there's a big boost from that. And also some other aspects that I can think of, sustainability. Like in a time of global warming, depending on which business you are in, like using eco-friendly materials and really having like recycling or like a design that caters to really being friendlier to resources is probably going to be more and more important. Personalization, I think, is more important. If you now see exponential technologies, we have like 3D printing, and you can 3D print food. So you could essentially like have every chocolate bar be personalized if you wanted to, and delivered to you, or even created at the store. So customizable products that are tailored to individual preferences is something that we can now do at scale much better than before. There will always be like agile and lean development methodologies, and also more digital twins and more simulation. Like as machines get even faster and even more capable, you can just simulate more things. We will continue collaborating more remotely and more on a global scale, as we've seen during the pandemic. And I'm a big believer that we'll have like really more like inclusive design, like really supporting. We talked about diversity, really focusing on diversity, accessibility, that whole area. Prototyping has already become dramatically faster. Like I work in a business where I create like beautiful devices like this one that illuminate and show you how to play the piano and how to learn. That is now possible for us to really test and 3D print and use additive manufacturing. Those were like technologies in manufacturing that did not exist a few years ago. So now you can really create quick prototypes and even functioning products in 3D, like much faster and much more in a much more achievable way. CNC exists, of course, and there are many new methods. So that's probably going to drive rapid product development if we think about physical products. And then really, I think two more things. Like one is the experience-driven designs are really having the emphasis on building exceptionally great user experiences and products. So really building delight. That will just continue to be a big theme, not just to build functional products, but also to create products that are delightful and are enjoyable. And then lastly, we talked about that earlier, globalization, and really adapting products for diverse markets is what's like with utilizing all that technology, what should be getting easier and better than we have it today.
Guys, thank you so much. I wanted to ask one more question, but we are out of time. I'm going to ask you in chat, and I'm going to add that. It's about how people can know more about you and your work. Thank you so much, Thomas and Joca. It was wonderful to exchange with you. I would stay here for a whole day asking questions.
Let's make it a series.
Exactly. But it would be a pleasure. It would be a pleasure.